This is the perfect example of invisible labor because invisible labor doesn't actually mean you cannot see the work. The term invisible labor itself actually is representative of unpaid, unseen, or undervalued work. Because here's the thing about invisible labor. Typically, it's women doing this work. It is women doing the invisible labor. And it's not that men don't know this work exists. They absolutely know this work exists. It's that they just don't think it's very valuable, and they definitely don't think it's their job to do it. Women today will tell you that they are drowning in invisible labor, that the mental load required to manage a home and to raise kids is crippling. And men will say, I don't know what you're talking about. I think you've made this up. This isn't real work. But the thing is, they know the work is real. They just choose to ignore it because they don't want to have to do the work. This video is a perfect example of how men see the work. They see this work they claim doesn't exist, and they choose to ignore it because they know that women will ultimately do this work. And so before you let a man ever tell you that this work is made up, that the mental load isn't real, that invisible labor is just something that women talk about to make themselves feel better, watch this video and remind yourself that most men know this work exists. They know this work exists, and they choose not to do it because they do not value this work, and they believe that this work is for women to do. So let this be a friendly reminder that the invisible labor and mental load that you carry is very, very real, and do not let a man tell you otherwise.
I have got to run, guys. I am late this morning. I'll see you tonight. Have a nice day.
Jack, honey, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I hit the snooze alarm once this morning, so I woke Casey 5 minutes late. So now I'm getting her dressed while I'm getting me dressed. While I'm getting their breakfast, making them lunch, do a load of laundry, feed the cat, French braid her hair, give the dog a flea pill, frost the cupcakes, dry shave my armpits, put the bills in the mailbox, grab the library book, set the timer on the sprinkler, put a chicken in the crock pot, do a little breast check, turn off Mr. Rogers, grab their books, grab my books, get in the car, get in the car, get in the car! And you get up and go to work. How do you do that?
You just have to pace yourself.
They did a study with 322 mothers that had young children, and they measured 30 household tasks that were split into two different categories, cognitive labor and physical labor. And they were measuring who does what, men versus women, and how it relates to mental health. They found that women did more labor than men in 28 out of the 30 tasks.
Oh, that's not where I thought this was going.
Okay. On average, mothers reported being responsible for 72.57% of all cognitive labor compared to their partners.
I believe that. Yeah, definitely.
And then 63.64% of all physical domestic labor.
Wow.
Compared to their partners.
That's higher than I thought.
Here is the kicker, though. They found that with the cognitive load being heavy, increases in depression were statistically significant. Increase in stress, increase in burnout, decrease of overall mental health, and a decrease in relationship quality. Meanwhile, the physical load barely had any linkage to mental health.
I totally believe that. That makes total sense.
So even the women that were carrying a majority of the physical load,
that wasn't what was weighing them down.
That was not what was having any kind of measurable, statistically significant mental health outcome.
Sure.
The cognitive load, though, statistically significant increase in depression, stress, burnout, quality relationship, etc.
I totally believe that.
3 reasons why I believe 99% of women don't have equitable balance of domestic labor in their homes. 1, the labor that they're doing is invisible, and their partner has no concept of how much mental load they're actually bearing. 2, whenever the conversation gets brought up for the equitable labor, emotions are really high, and their partner feels attacked, becomes defensive, and the conversation goes nowhere. This was me. 3, when adjustments are being made in the domestic labor, execution is the only focus without including the mental load into it, including conception and planning.
Which leads me into my next little bit. People aren't dating anymore because women want men who don't exist yet, and men want women who don't exist anymore.
Oh.
Men are conditioned that the value of having a woman in their life is her labor, but not for her companionship.
I remember I was asked when I was single, what attracts you to a partner? What do you look for in a partner? But it'd be things like, oh, I want her to have a lot of creativity. I want her to have strong opinions. I would like her to have hobbies she really likes to do. Like things that are like indicative of a three-dimensional person versus someone who's just going to do a bunch of it sounds like straight out of Mad Men. Like 1960s, 1950s, early 60s, 1950s. Yeah, it's total. I mean, if you list those things out, it's just, you're right. You want a domestic servant. You don't want a companion.
Yeah.
I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I have found proof that men understand invisible labor. The bad news is they only seem to understand it when it comes to them doing it. If you ever need any proof that you're being taken advantage of as a woman, just look at how easy it is for men to see the unpaid labor that they do. And don't ever let them gaslight you about your contributions, because they see it real quick when they are the ones that have to do the unpaid labor. And guess what? They are real eager to be compensated for it. And the question was, married couples, do you have a joint bank account or do you do things separately? This answer has a little bit of an M. Night Shyamalan twist, because this man says, we joined our accounts shortly after we got married. And I was a little resistant at first. I wonder why. But he says it honestly makes it so much easier because it takes into account the unpaid labor that happens in a relationship. And for some reason, I thought this was going in a different direction. Like, this sentence threw me for a loop. He says, my wife makes more money than I do. And it turns out she has some very specific diet requirements that she absolutely needs to follow. And because of that, this man says he does all of the cooking. Having spent a decade or so in the restaurant industry after graduation, it means that I do 100% of the cooking. I just want to point out really quick, this wasn't like a new skill that he had to learn for her. This is already an existing skill that was supposedly meant to help him with his career. He says, you know, apparently while he loves being able to cook and like all that stuff, it's a fuck ton of work. I'm not surprised to hear that. And then it gets even better because he says like she wouldn't be able to work the hours and the job that she does if it weren't a team effort. So our money being combined means that the work I do is essentially paid. And, you know, he kind of insinuates that, you know, maybe if he wasn't around, she wouldn't have all this career success and it would be a lot more difficult for her to achieve the kind of highs that she achieved at her job. I just think that's funny because look how quickly men take credit for unpaid labor that they would rather not be doing. Look how comfortable they are at not going 50-50 in that scenario. Look how comfortable they are taking their wife's money because they feel that they are bringing like an extra sort of value to her. They want to feel like their labor is valued. They want to feel like their work is worthy. So upsetting to me because for years, women have been saying invisible labor, like we cook, we clean, we do this stuff so that you can go to work, so that you can succeed in your career. And the moment we talk about, hey, it was like my work that helped you get here, and it was like all this stuff that I did, all this stuff I sacrificed, men are like, oh, you're just a gold digger, you know, you only want me for my money, and you know, you just want to stay home and spend my money. Just mind you that they would never feel the same way if they were the one staying at home cooking 100% of the meals from scratch. This man does not mention cleaning, so I'm assuming that his wife, even while working this, you know, high-powered job or whatever, she doesn't feel the need to like skip out on house responsibilities just because he makes less money than her and because he's already picking up the cooking. It doesn't sound like she expects him to do anything else on top of that, and yet he is so comfortable taking her money. He is so comfortable getting paid for all this fuck ton of unpaid labor that he does. Can you imagine if they had kids? Can you just wonder, like, how are they going to handle childbirth when she does a fuck ton of unpaid labor? How are they going to handle breastfeeding when he can't do it? What is he going to do to contribute into that situation? And how is she going to get paid for her unpaid labor? I'm just glad we're having this conversation regardless, either way, because until men start to do this labor and see it and perceive it as actually valuable, then there's no chance that women's issues are ever going to see the light of day with this. Sucks that all of our issues have to first go through men and they have to first be perceived and understood by men so that standards can be set and restitutions can be made. But at least we're getting there. At least men are starting to see like, wow, cooking like a very specific, you know, diet and a meal for somebody from scratch is a lot of work. And yet that's what like most women do for their husbands. A lot of men have, you know, cardiac and other health issues that require them to be on some sort of a modified diet. And guess who that falls on? Guess who never says, oh, let me pay you for this labor that you are performing for me, that if I had to do all this stuff for myself, I would be out of a job, I would be out of opportunities, I would not be eligible for promotions, etc. You are the reason that I'm making this good money, so let me put it all in this joint bank account. And not only that, but the majority of men that do that, the amount of money that's in the joint bank account for the woman to spend is barely enough to provide basic necessities for the household and their children. So the woman is actually getting nothing out of it other than room, board, and a cold meal at the end of the night after everybody else has eaten, been put to bed, the house has been cleaned, the dishes have been washed, then maybe she gets to eat. But tomorrow she's gonna have to wake up and clip coupons in order to go buy groceries, which is also unpaid labor. And she's essentially not getting paid for anything other than to feed this man and raise his children. And the only thing that she gets in exchange for that is room and board. But it's funny how men very clearly see and perceive unpaid work as something of value as soon as they have to touch it, even with a 60-foot pole. Oh, cooking from scratch is so much work. Of course I should be compensated for it. Yeah, that's what we've been trying to tell y'all. Selfish and narcissistic people can only see things from their point of view. They don't have empathy. So until something happens to them, you'll notice the man said, I was hesitant at first to combine our money. Maybe that's because he thought he was going to be the one that got paid more. And he thought about withholding his extra money from his wife because he wanted to keep it himself. He didn't think that his industry was going to crumble when he graduated and hers was going to be thriving. So now he switched up on that real quick. He said, no, I like it now because obviously I should be getting paid for all of this work that I do for her. Really, like, can you imagine going through life like this? Like literally just never thinking about anyone but yourself, never considering what the actual fairness of things is until it happens to you and it's time for you to take the fall. It's time for you to take a hit. And it's so easy for men to understand this stuff when it comes to them doing things that they would otherwise not have to do. Meanwhile, women have been saying for years that if my husband wasn't so picky, he didn't need like all this, like a varied menu and like all this other stuff, I would just eat girl dinner every night. I would maybe cook a 3-course meal several times a month instead of doing it every single night. And men have never considered that to be worthy of even being called unpaid labor. Like that's just something a woman is supposed to bring to a relationship. Otherwise, you shouldn't even marry her. Like, why would you be with her if she doesn't cook, clean, and do all this other stuff that she doesn't really want to do? So the same things that men take for granted from you, they want to be paid to do them because things are an inconvenience. And those things do cost you time and money and mental effort and physical effort. And they recognize that as labor and they want to be paid for it. And my other observation about this is, what if she wasn't making as much money as him? It's funny how men really see things in terms of money only. You know, she deserves to have meals made for her because she makes more money than me. But what if she was just working a demanding job that didn't make more money than you? Would you still then cook everything for her from scratch? Would you still then take care of her needs like that? If there wasn't that exchange of she makes more money than I do and she puts it in our joint bank account so that both of us can have more financial freedom? Would he do it just to stay in that relationship? And what if it wasn't a skill that he already had? What if he had to learn how to do all this from scratch? Would he invest the time if this wasn't already easy for him? Because a lot of women do. A lot of women learn how to cook just for their husband. They learn how to cook their favorite meals. They learn how to work around dietary restrictions. And nobody ever gives them any extra brownie points for it. And that's all, by the way, that's all he mentioned. It doesn't sound like he takes any other load off of her disproportionately other than cooking, which again, I will remind you, was a skill that he already had. It's a transferable skill. So he can also go out there and make money with this skill because it wasn't a skill that he learned for specifically one person, the way that most women learn how to cook for just their husband. The set of skills can be transferred and he can get paid for it outside of the home and he gets paid for it inside the home. Interesting how that works for men and not for women. And what if his career field wasn't in shambles right now? Who would be cooking for her? Who would be doing all this? Women are expected to take on that load of cooking regardless of whether they have a job or not. Regardless of whether they get paid more or less, it doesn't matter. But as soon as men start participating in invisible labor, now they want to go tit for tat. And again, I doubt he would be doing this if she didn't make more money than him. I'm not just like wildly speculating. I'm getting that based on his wording because of the reasons that he stated for why he does what he does. It seems like it is money-based and money-oriented and that he's okay with this trade-off. But I just wonder if things would be the same if that trade-off wasn't there. This has been your daily reminder that men know, they just don't care. Stay safe out there. I love you. Godspeed.
Guys, the reason you're always arguing with your partner is because you don't understand her invisible labor. Let me explain.
Just starts today. Maybe we all get 5 minutes to actually breathe.
Yes, honey, please take a break. You work yourself to the bone. Cut it out.
Field trip Friday. Stack is packed. Commission sub signed. Doctor appointment rescheduled. Text my sister. Wish list finished. It's gonna be a good day.
Oof. I don't know how you do it all. You're such a good mom.
All right, can't forget the note about the allergy. I already washed this. Ugh.
What's the note about?
All right, grocery list is done. Dinner's all planned out. Just needs Zach to...
Yeah. I should be good to...
Hey, what are you doing?
What?
What are you doing?
Oh, just making dinner plans with the guys. It's been like forever since we hung out.
Right. Of course you are. Dude, are you not seeing the invisible labor going on here? Everything she plans, everything she tracks, everything that she's thinking about that you are not paying attention to and that no one else sees and that you're not noticing, the lack of willingness to share it and the arguments that I know you're gonna have a couple hours later. I saw you just now acknowledge her a couple different times for the work that she is putting in, but you offered surface level platitudes. Said, stop working so hard. How do you do it all? I would actually call this benevolent sexism. There's no real effort to improve the situation. You're asking her to stop doing laundry, but not like you're gonna pick it up. You asked her about the note going into the back backpack, but clearly take no interest in remembering that for the future. And of course, when she puts all the effort into making sure that dinner goes smoothly, you're off making plans with her. And then you complain when she's nagging you. Hello. Hi, my name's Zach. I'm your favorite mental health coach and recovering man-child. Hi, Zach. I teach men to better understand invisible labor as well as improve their emotional literacy and fluency. And I'm on a mission to change how men see invisible labor. If these are the kind of problems that you're working on in your marriage and you want to be the better version of yourself that you signed up to be when you asked her on the first date, follow along to better understand her experience.
71% of women still perform more invisible labor in their household, even when both partners are working. It's not about driving the kid to doctor's appointment. Invisible labor is about knowing when the appointment is, scheduling the appointment, knowing what kind of checkups they're having, knowing if they're going to get shots and if those shots are going to make him sick, having Tylenol ready for them because they're going to have a fever. It's all of that little checklist that almost go unnoticed, right? Invisible labor is called invisible because you don't see it. You just see the end result. But sometimes what's leading up to the end result is really what drives so many people and so many women into exhaustion.
I remember there was a time in my early marriage when I had very young children, when my husband had asked me, "What did you do all day?" And I don't know why. That question would infuriate me to my core. I couldn't even then pinpoint why I felt so infuriated. I knew that I hadn't really sat down. I knew I hadn't taken a minute to myself, let alone to even have privacy to go to the bathroom with little kids. And then a couple of years later, I heard someone use the term invisible emotional labor. And they said, make a list of all the things you do all day long, even the things that don't necessarily require physical labor, all of the emotional labor you are doing that is even in caretaking for other people, the things that you are keeping track of. So in addition to all the stuff that you are physically doing, what else are you doing emotionally for your life, for your family? And for women, it turns out, myself included, there was so much on that list. And when I wrote down all the physical things I had done all day and then all the emotional labor things I had done all day in regards to my family and all of my loved ones, I started to really piece together and understand why I felt so exhausted at the end of a day and so resentful that when somebody asked me what I did all day, it felt bigger than I could even explain, but I couldn't actually articulate it at the time. So I share this and bring this up because I think it's important for us to pay attention to all of the invisible labor we do that doesn't really get counted for. Invisible labor could even be considered the taking care of householding things, because for some people, all they know is that their clean clothes get put back and there's always toothpaste in the cupboard and that everything just seems to run smoothly. And that can even be considered invisible labor if somebody doesn't understand the inner workings of what it takes to run a household. And then there's the invisible emotional labor, where so much emotion and energy is spent on making sure everyone is cared for and cared for well. So pay attention to if you're feeling very fatigued at the end of a day and you might think, well, what did I really do today? Take into context and consideration all that you were doing labor-wise emotionally. And for some of you, is a lot of healing. Emotional invisible labor as it relates to healing childhood trauma and wounds that we never asked for.
Happy New Year and all that good stuff, but what I want to talk to you all about is invisible labor. Invisible labor, because here's the thing. It's not that I get overwhelmed because I do too much. It's not that. I get overwhelmed because too much is silently assigned to me. It's like the cooking, the cleaning, the planning, anticipating needs, especially if you like a neurodivergent or you're a Pisces or any of those people that have like these like natural, like nurturing tendencies, you get assigned invisible labor all the time. So to me, it's like, because I'm making sure everyone is okay, or that I'm holding everybody's emotional transition, even though I struggle with transitions with my own ADHD. Somehow I gotta help everybody else. I gotta read the room. I gotta make sure this person don't have an attitude. I gotta make sure you good. You good? You okay? You all right? And then we're like, I'm good. And then later they explode at you. That's a whole problem too. Keeping the things moving, okay? Invisible labor. So like if you're neurodivergent or something and that load hits you so different because your brain is already working overtime because you are in a world that requires you to be neurotypical and you aren't. So then you struggle with trying to stay regulated. Your nervous system is on fire, okay? So when people say things like, well, you didn't have to do all that, what they really miss is if I don't do it, it doesn't go undone. It becomes a problem I have to manage anyways. That's not the choice, okay? I know a lot of that is conditioning. I know, because like I always tell y'all, I grew up in one of those listen to your husband sanctified church things, so you're supposed to, even though I know I'm not in that, there's still an imprint. There's still an imprint that I'm supposed to do it. So my thing is, and the hardest part isn't just the work, it's the watching other people while they rest, or the attitude they get if I say, can you pick up this, or can you do that, or can you do this? And it's like, you're like, seriously? I gotta do 95 things and I ask you to do 5 so we can get to 100 and you got a problem with it? So my thing is, especially if you're neurodivergent, my booze, rest isn't just about time off. It's about being able to not be the default system for everyone else, because that's how I feel a lot of times. And I have to explain what needs to be done. That's already labor. If I have to tell you what needs to be done, that's labor. That is labor already. Okay? So if I'm oh, I need a day off so I can recover or something, that's not rest. That is collapse. I'm done. I am beyond capacity. But to have the expectation that even though I've already vocalized I'm past that, so I'm not going to complain about it. And I'm not going to carry it alone. It's a shared responsibility. Shared responsibility is not help. It's respect. I'm just saying, invisible labor isn't just physical. It is cognitive, it's emotional, and constant, especially if you're neurodivergent. Okay? Naming is the first boundary. Visible labor. Like, share, comment if you agree or don't agree or whatever. I don't care. Tell somebody. Save it. Shoot.
Please.
When you are the one who has to hold a lot of things in your brain about the other people in your household, it is called invisible labor. For instance, the person who remembers when people have to go to the dentist, when people have to go to the doctor, when people have to have their checkups, when people have to, when things are due for this date, when things are due on that date, how to sign the kids up for this. And then in order to sign the kids up for this thing has to happen. And if that thing happens, then how, generally speaking, the wife/mother in a relationship has to be several steps ahead, right? And so oftentimes in our relationship currently, when you interrupt a thought, or when you interrupt me reading a book, or when you interrupt these things, I think what you sense is the frustration that I feel like I have, because I don't feel like I ever get the free time that you get in terms of the being able to just kind of live in my head or live in your head. And I think on this issue, a lot of women were going to have my back on this in terms of even if it's the division of labor and all of those things. But I would say that the division of labor hasn't always been that way, especially when our children were very, very small. I think things have shifted now, especially because Andrew does soccer and you love soccer. You'll jump up and take him to the soccer game in a heartbeat. Take him to this. You've got all of that because you enjoy that. You enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of what it takes to plan the events, plan the birthday parties. We have our youngest son loves a birthday party.
He does.
That planning is by default on me. And again, all the other things, it's a ticker tape parade for women in relationships, especially when there are children. As our children have gotten older, I will say that I have done a lot to try to get over what I felt was the immediate, when they are born, typically speaking, the woman does the lion's share of the work, typically speaking. And I have admitted to being very bitter about the fact that I felt like I was immediately thrust into this role of it's all on me.
You have a great guy, he does a lot around the house and helps out with the kids, but you still feel resentful. You still feel like you're carrying the bulk of the labor. Okay, so he took the kid to swimming. Yes, but you knew the kid had finished level 2 and needed to take level 3. You found out where she could take level 3 and you booked her into the class, even though it took you 30 minutes on the phone to book it in. You checked that her swimsuit fitted, and then you took her out to buy a new swimsuit because it didn't. You packed the bag, you made sure that she had her swim goggles, her swim hat, and everything else she needed, and you packed a snack because you knew she'd be hungry when she got out of the pool. And then you made sure everyone was fed, and then you passed the bag to your partner, and he took her swimming. And you should be grateful, right? That's why you're struggling. That's why you're exhausted. That's why you're feeling resentful and angry with your partner. You are carrying the bulk of the invisible workload in the home, and it's taking its toll.
Nobody checks on the together woman. Nobody's asking, are you all right? Because she looks fine. She has a good job, good kids. She raises everyone around her. And then she finds out that she's expected to raise the man that she married. Nobody presents as more confident and more together than an emotionally unavailable man. Nobody switches faster or more fully from an adult wanting a partner to an emotional infant wanting a parent. In 5 years, he'll describe her as hard work, naggy, needy. And you know what? He'll be right, because he will have made her into those things. Years of adding to her emotional load. Years of letting her manage the house, manage the family, the calendars, his life. Years of her knowing the kids' shoe sizes while he joked about forgetting their birthdays. A gradual, incidental snowball of anxiety growing inside her. Because underneath all of that togetherness, she knows if she falls over, if she stops, everything stops. Yeah, but Harry, it happens the other way round too. Oh yeah, I'm sure, but nowhere near as much. Not even close. If you want proof, drive past a golf club on a Saturday. Look in a pub window any night of the week. We both know who's there while the house is being quietly run and managed with the emotional labour of the thankless together woman. And nobody checks on her, because checking is her job. And the consequences of not checking on her are pints and par threes, while the consequences of her not checking are lives falling to pieces. Where's your together woman, and how are you checking on her? Big hug.